Oh man, I'm so excited. I'm connecting today with Robin Samples, and she's the owner of Bare Feet Power Yoga in Chicago. And of course, you can find her at that website name, barefeetpoweryoga.com. But Robin, thank you so much for doing this with me. How is your day going so far?
Thank you so much for having me. So far, my day is going just swell. I took a yoga class this morning. I'm here in Chicago and we have a beautiful day. It's winter. So, whenever the sun comes out, I'll tell you what, people perk up and there's just like good vibes all around.
That's cool. I've only been to Chicago once via train. I was taking the train from New York to California and it went through Chicago. And so I got off the train, I walked around a little bit, and then I got back on the train. So I can't really, I think that counts as going to Chicago once,
Yeah.
but not really good. But the one impression I had, and I'd been in New York, and this is in 1992, so I don't know if things are the same or different, but probably different. I
Mhm.
um I was amazed at how white and clean it looked.
Mm.
Like it just seemed so like the everything just looked like it was mostly colored white or painted white, and then it just like there was it just seemed so like there was it just seemed clean to me. But is that the impression? How would you describe Chicago?
That's a great first impression to have. I will say for being a big city, it is really clean. I think that we do a relatively good job of keeping the streets, the community, the parks all clean. But there's, the idea of white buildings. I was like, I wonder where he was. There's many a size skyscrapers. Chicago has a wonderful lake too, which feels like an ocean, truthfully, with how big it is and how expansive it is. One of the Great Lakes. Love that about Chicago. The people here are really friendly, very down to earth. There's lots of really wonderful culture of music, tons of awesome diversity. It's a really great city to live in. I've been here now for, I want to say like 14, 15 years. So it very much feels like home to me. And I love being in the Midwest, just this really awesome Midwest kind mentality.
Very cool. Where were you born?
I was born in North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah, Fargo. I've never been there either. That's cool. How, how old were you when you left North Dakota?
All right. So I only lived there for like 9 months. So truthfully, I do not remember hardly anything about being there, but I was fortunate enough in the last like 2 years ago or a year ago, I went there to go back. And it was so cool to just be back and get this sense of like, oh, this is where I was born. But after there, I lived in Mississippi for a period of time. And then I lived in Minnesota. And then I lived in Georgia. And then I lived in Iowa. And then I found my way to Chicago.
Oh my gosh, that's a great like up down, like from the west to the south, to the north to the south, to the north to the west to the east to the south. No.
All around.
Do I remember all those places? Yeah, that's really cool. So you've seen a good cross section of America, North America.
Yeah, it feels
Uh,
like it.
that's cool. And you're the owner of a yoga studio. I myself, my wife, and I also own a yoga studio. So I'm so excited to ask you questions about your experiences. Can you tell me when did you open your studio?
I opened Bare Feet Power Yoga in 2012, June
Nice.
2012. So now we've been open for, this is my 12th year of business.
Yeah,
A lot has changed. I've been in the same space the all 12 years.
cool.
It's a really small, intimate space, like 1,300 square feet. When I opened my studio 12 years ago, it was very different, the whole yoga scene than it is now. I was also quite like young and naive in the best way in opening a studio. And so, you know, like when I opened my doors, like my dad and I installed the floors together. A friend and I did like the baseboards, we painted everything, so it was really like grassroots effort of building this space. And it's been really cool to see the way it's evolved over this like decade plus.
Yeah, that's awesome. That brings back memories too. We did it the same way here as well. My dad helped me lay the floors. My mom was in here painting. My wife was pregnant with our first child. And we were
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, we bought a house, we're opening a studio and having a baby all at the same time. Are we nuts? You know what I mean? Like
yes,
we were
yes,
working our
and
butts off and And yeah, you're right. That naivety, like, wow, isn't that fun
Uh-huh.
to look back on that? Like, just how ambitious and naive. That is really cool.
I'm
Because,
so grateful. I'm so
yeah,
grateful that I
yeah,
was, honestly.
good point.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, what what was your first yoga experience that you remember?
Okay, so my first yoga experience was in college. I was an athlete. I was a swimmer. I swam for University of Iowa, go Hawks, and we did like a yoga Pilates class. Interestingly enough, I apologize for the sirens if you happen to hear them. City
Yeah,
living,
no worries.
but um, Ashton Kutcher's aunt taught the class to us. And I remember being like, oh, that's so cool. But yoga Lattes was the first experience. And then after college, I took a Bikram yoga class with one of my good friends who ended up being the person that really introduced me to yoga. And so that was like a hot, sweaty experience that we got to share.
Yes, yes, I'm
Yeah.
familiar. Uh-huh, uh-huh. I'm very
Yeah, it
familiar.
was
Yeah.
yeah, I think I did like two Bikram classes, and then she opened a power yoga studio at that time. And so then I started diving into power yoga, and I loved like her philosophy. I loved supporting her, and I loved the variety that she would bring into her classes as well. And so then power yoga was really what drew me into the full yoga path.
I feel like at that time period, the power yoga scene was really instigated by Baron Baptiste and say Beryl Bender Birch. Those are two like really famous names back then. But what teacher did she have that she got power yoga introduced?
Baron Baptiste.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. So
Isn't it
so
amazing?
she
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I remember when I got his book, I think it was the power of something. He's in crow pose on the front. It's the version of
Yes.
crow where you have your knees kind of a little off the side of your, and of course he had his bandana on. And I I guess I just want to mention real quick one thing I loved about his book is at that time my wife and I owned a Bikram yoga studio in San Diego, and we had gone to India to study Ashtanga yoga with Patabi Joyce in Mysore. And because Bikram had this really tyrannical approach with his students that like if you ever try to go out on your own, you'll never make it, you'll never survive without me type of thing. That when my wife and I were thinking about coming back here to Florida to open the studio, I was really nervous because I gotten brainwashed a little bit by Bikram's ethos. And so Barron's book was kind of like, look, I've studied with Bikram, I studied with Iyengar, I studied with Patabi Joyce, I've been to all these different people, and look, I'm doing my own thing. And I looked at him like, well, if he can do it, it's possible. You know what I mean? So I guess I really appreciate Barron for that.
Yeah, what an inspirational man. He's the one I did my first 200-hour training with as well, back in I think
Cool.
2009 and then 2010. And it was just incredible to be in that kind of space with him, the level of like empowerment that he was able to share with us. And that was the experience, when I went into teacher training, I didn't know if I was going to like do this full time or if I was just like interested in deepening my practice and understanding of yoga. And there was one night in his week-long training where we did noble silence. And then I was like walking back. It was in Tulum. It was gorgeous. I looked up at the stars and I remember just being like, I got to share this.
Uh-huh.
Like, this is
Yeah.
it. There is something
Yeah.
here that people need to do more of.
Wow.
So such an inspirational man.
Very
He is.
cool.
And I know what book you're talking about, The Journey into Power. That's
Thank
a good
you.
book.
I really wanted to
Yeah.
get that title right. So if anyone listening wants to read it, it's good. I like what he did.
Right?
Yeah.
Same.
Very
Mhm.
cool. What other influences, because you've been at it for a few years now, what other influences have you, and there's probably a lot. So even if you have to
Mhm.
condense it down to maybe top three or five other influences, where else are you drawing inspiration from in your teaching and your practice?
That is such a good question. And I had like wrote down this really long list and I was like, I don't know how we're going to talk about all of this. there's,
Right? We can
there's,
try. We can try.
there's so many people. Like, I feel like almost any class that I
Yes.
take, I'm like learning something from, there's so many incredible teachers out there. I've had some teachers I've only taken like two classes from that have completely transformed like the way I see things, you know, um,
Yes.
I also I got to give the woman who taught me yoga, like who introduced me to yoga, Adrienne Smith. She's out in California. Like, I'm so grateful for her and her constant teachings that she brings. And honestly, with all of the amazing yogis out there, lately I find myself learning from those that don't even like practice the asana. I do some retreats in Oaxaca, and some of the yogis down in Oaxaca are like so inspiring to me, just their way of living and their culture, and they're living from the heart space. I have a mentor that I work with too, Ricardo Sun Eagle is his name, and he's fantastic. Like, he doesn't practice the power yoga. He's more of like a qigong man, but like just the way he can like teach me about the philosophies of yoga is really inspiring. And then I love Janet Stone, what she's up to. Again, so many different teachers that I could list as well, but just
I'm
the
writing them
variety.
down. I'm writing them down so I can go follow them and and then maybe even ask them to be a guest on the show. And I'll use your name. I'll say Robin mentioned you.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be
cool.
awesome.
Keep going. You can name more if you made a long list. We don't have to like give their full biography, but if there's any others you want to give credit to, I think it's good to give teachers credit because yoga is this lineage element and we're all passing it and sharing it. And so anytime we talk about our teachers, whether they have a good reputation or not now, I think it's still important. Yeah, I think it's important to even honor them, even if they're not in good standing with
It's fair.
the world.
It's a fair point.
I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
yeah. All right.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Things happen. Life happens.
Yeah.
Um, there was so there the when I mentioned there was like maybe a class I took, Donovan, last name McGrath, and he does amplified yoga. And I took his class twice at Wonderlust, and that's the only time I've been in contact with him. But I'll tell you what, that just completely shifted my energy for like such a long period of time. And I loved how he took like the Kundalini practice, made it really like fun and accessible, and just like transformed this experience where I was like, wow, like this is so fun and wild.
That's awesome. Donovan McGrath. McGrath.
Yes,
All right.
McGrath. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. And just a lot of the teachers at Wonderlust, Anna Forrest took a fantastic workshop with her. Sean Korn learned a little from her. And these are all people that I just feel like, I dabble and do like a weekend training with. And then I did my 500-hour with a program called Live, Love, Teach, which no longer exists. But there was a man, Philip Urso, who really appreciated his teachings, and of just like silence and simplicity. And then Debbie Williamson, who ended up like opening up her own chocolate company after leading 20 plus years of owning studios and teacher trainings. And she taught me a lot, and really a lot about living from the heart, and just having this ability to just like give you permission to just go create, like, be authentic to who you are. Like, this is what yoga is, just go teach. So I'll leave it there, but so many
I'm
all
so
the time.
glad you took the time to compile that list. That's awesome. That's awesome. I know, right? And,
Yeah,
and there are more. I know. I mean, that's what's really cool about this. And like yoga as an umbrella, and then how diverse. And then you add in our own personal experience. We start teaching, and then how we put the spin on it. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, that's cool.
it is.
So now, as a yoga studio owner and a mother, how many classes a week are you currently teaching?
Right now, I just teach 2 classes a week, but I enjoy leading workshops as well.
Cool.
My weekly schedule ranges anywhere between like 2 and 6 classes, depending on what's needed.
Hmm.
And like tomorrow, I have a cacao ceremony that I'm hosting. So a little bit outside of the yoga practice, but still something that really drops us into the heart space. And I love those sort of events, lots of moon ceremonies, moon flows, different experiences like that, which are incorporating the sacred circle in addition to movement, meditation, mindfulness.
That's
So
awesome. When I check out your website, I notice you have like a really diverse group, a lot of different offerings from a lot of different people. They all looked really interesting. And so what is your ethos in regards to, all right, so when I think, okay, I'm going to do a workshop, there's like two things that I keep into account when I host somebody. Are they local? So
mm,
that means we don't have to think about airfare. We don't have to think about accommodation. and we don't have to come up with a there's a little more pressure I find when we host somebody that's bigger and from outside of town, because you just got to make sure it works, like enough people come. I live in a very small town in relation to Chicago, has
Mhm.
a big population, so I'm sure the dynamic is way. I've always wondered what it'd be like to own a yoga studio in a city, because sometimes, like, I mean, it's probably a false idea. Like, I'll think like, if I was in a city, there'd be so many more people would come in. You know what I mean? But I mean, maybe it is as simple as that. What, what do you think, just in relation to that question? Like, you're in a city and you have a small space. Are you packed for every single class where people, like, you can't even handle the amount of people coming through your door? Or do you still have moments where you're like, wow, I really got to do something to get some more people through the door?
It ebbs and flows, to be honest. I think
Uh-huh.
one of the benefits of the city, like you said, is, and I'm on a street that many pedestrians walk on. So just the walk by traffic is really nice for sharing like what it is that we do, and people seeing like, oh, hey, there's a yoga studio in my neighborhood. So that's really helpful. So part of you is correct of like, there's a lot of people will just walk in. Yes. And there have been some times over the last 12 years where our so many classes were full. Like, we have a small space and we would fit like, an inch between people's mats. It was like one of those. And after COVID, that definitely changed a lot for us, honestly. And it hasn't been the same since. We have certain classes that hit capacity and some classes that are very lightly attended. It really just depends, honestly,
Yeah, it's
on
really,
what's going on.
I don't want to say it's good to hear that, because kind of want it to be the way it used to be. But
Mhm,
we've noticed the same thing.
mhm.
We've noticed the exact
Yeah,
same thing. And maybe someone's going to say, well, she's in Chicago and there's a different outlook on COVID. You're in Florida, there's might be a different outlook on COVID. But I almost want to throw a little spanner in that theory, because even though maybe someone might say, well, in Florida, you were lucky we got to stay open, but that didn't mean that everybody wanted to be around people. And then in
mhm.
Chicago, it might say, well, there's probably stricter guidelines. I'm guessing there were. I could be wrong. Maybe there
There
wasn't.
were.
There
Mhm.
were. That's what I
Yeah, we
heard.
did.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And but we're both noticing kind of the same thing. So that's interesting. What
It
do you
is.
think from that?
I think it's a behavior shift. I think during COVID, regardless of whether you were closed or open, everybody kind of handled it slightly differently. There was a lot of time for people to um, recalibrate, to align themselves, to change their behaviors, because things were changing all over. And it's really a collective consciousness that we're working with. So even though, I'm in Chicago, you're in Florida, we still are part of this collective experience.
Agreed.
So I believe that people have shifted their behaviors. Like pre-COVID, it was like you never stopped. I don't know about you, but I sure didn't. And I remember right before things shut down for us, I was at this point where I was like, I need a break. Like, oh my gosh, things are just going, going, going. I don't have a moment.
Yeah.
And COVID required us to take that pause. And now I find with a lot of people, they're like, oh no, I don't practice yoga 5 days a week anymore. I do it twice a week.
Mhm.
So their behavior has shifted and they're like, no, and then I like my meditation at home or whatever it is. And I like to dive into this practice as well as this practice. So I just think people's behaviors have shifted since then. And I don't know that it's ever going to be the same or ever going to go back to where it was. Part of me wishes it would, but the other part of me like very much appreciates that we have a little better balance now,
Yeah.
even if for the business it isn't necessarily ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great answer. Um, cool. You teach about 2 classes a week. You're teaching more workshops. Is that something that you evolved toward? Like, were you doing more like teaching 16 classes a week and then decided, well, hey, maybe I could have a little more energy if I just do two, and then I make it where, because you're the studio owner, so people want you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they want you to teach all the classes. Do you agree with that, or do you find that um you've been able to cultivate not so much dependency on you? How do you manage that?
Over time, it's the latter. But when I first opened, I did teach 17 classes a week. I was there all the time. And that was very intentional on my part too. Like I wanted to keep my overhead low. I wanted to get to know my community, what it was that I was doing, and then slowly would bring in teachers. And many of the teachers that I've had have been with me for a long period of time, which is why now I don't think I have to like be there teaching all the classes, because my teachers have like grown up with us, so they are very much part of the community just as I am. So it gives me less pressure to be there all the time. And I started cutting back on classes once I had my child, and once the business started moving on its more on its own, getting those good teachers in there. And then I truthfully can't remember why I dropped down just to 2 classes, but I think it was, I had this idea of like, well, I want to do bigger workshops less often. And if I'm really accessible, if people can find me all the time, then they're not going to come take my special workshop because I'm teaching eight times a week,
Yeah.
or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
So very intentionally decided I'm going to teach less so I can put my energy over here as well. And then also have been doing more retreats. And that's something that I really have a lot of passion for in this moment in time. And so putting a lot of my energy there as well, and recruiting for those, because those are just so much fun.
Yeah. Where's your top three retreat places you've held retreats?
Well, the one that I love the most is Oaxaca. I just got back from that in November. It's such a special place, just such a beautiful culture and amazing people, and just the whole setup that we have, because it's not just a yoga retreat. It's like we do yoga or movement, but really diving in to the culture, to the ceremony. We do a sweat lodge, we do cacao ceremony, we do fire ceremony, so it's just such a nice shift from the daily life in the city. And so I just love that so much.
I've always wanted to go to Oaxaca. I'm a
Ooh.
surfer, and Puerto Escondido is like, Mexican pipe and heavy, heavy wave. Like now I probably won't be surfing that because I have to be more careful these days with my back and all. But the it looks like an amazing place. I'm gonna go a little bit out on a limb here, and you do
Mhm.
not have to answer this. So if you just don't feel comfortable publicly speaking about this, but Oaxaca is kind of very famous for psilocybin because, I think that's actually where the first people out. I think that's where the mushroom basically got introduced into culture. I mean, there's
Correct.
involved in culture all along, but in terms of Western culture, do you involve that in your retreats, or do you like, whoa, this is professional and that's a little too wild, so let's not go there?
I am a big fan of plant medicine, honestly. It's something that came into my life more during COVID. And so I find myself very fortunate to sit in ceremony with some amazing shaman who work so closely with the plants. So that is something that we participate in per people's choice. It's such a powerful experience to have.
That's really
Yes.
cool. I heard someone they were getting ready to go to a workshop, and one of the requirements was you can only come if you do participate in it. And I thought, red flag, you know, like let that be someone's choice,
Mhm.
But so I'm glad that you said that. And I won't stay on that topic the whole time, but when I saw your website, I did notice that you offer cannabis in yoga classes. And I
We
was like,
do.
oh my gosh, I haven't seen anybody do that. And so, can you tell me a little bit about what the culture in Chicago is in terms of legality, and is it at a recreational level in Chicago?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. And there's
So there's
dispensaries all over the place.
so that's a
Oh
non-issue.
my gosh.
There's no legal
It's
element. What ab-
yeah, all over.
what okay, got it. What about the actual experience of it? Do people like that, or do you have students that aren't comfortable with that idea, that see that you offer that happening and therefore maybe choose not to come to you because of that? Or can you just shed a little light on what your thought processes have been around this subject?
Yeah, so I think all of that is true. I think that the experience is one that's safe, that's really lighthearted, and there's a depth to it as well. It's we offer these experiences, I'd say every 6 weeks or 2 months, and we have a nice group of people that like just love this. We've had people that are new to cannabis that want to explore it in a safe way, and I think this is a great way to do that, because like you had mentioned, there's many different options of how you want to consume, and you can take as little as you want or as much as you'd like. It's trust yourself, choose your adventure with guidance when asked.
Gotcha.
Um, I think that there are people who see that and say, "Ooh, that's not for me. I don't like that they're doing that, and I don't want to go there." And I recognize that I am not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
I also think that there's a group of people who see this and love it, because with cannabis being recreational here, like it's all over the place. And I think sometimes we lose the intentionality when consuming this magical medicinal plant. And so this experience that we created is designed to bring people back to like the why. Like, why are we choosing and how are we going to use this plant to help elevate our consciousness together? So it's really quite a magical class that we have.
That's cool, Robin. I appreciate your adventure spirit. What other things have you offered at your studio that maybe you feel like you were, I don't want to say pioneer, but that maybe you made you uncomfortable? Well, maybe nothing makes you uncomfortable, but have you had any things that like made you yeah, you laughed that are uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh, should I do that or will they like it? And then you do it and you go, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Ooh.
Why was I nervous about trying doing that? Like, I mean, it could be anything from like, I don't know, a sound bath, or I mean, that doesn't sound
No,
that
but I feel,
scary.
yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
understand your question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think all the time, honestly. I think that there's like one of the things that I enjoy is learning things and bringing them. And I recognize like I'm not always an expert in everything, but if there's something that lights me up, I want to share it with my community. So I'll just take a very simple example, like in ceremony there's a lot of singing, there's such joy in singing, and I am by no means like a professional singer, but in my classes lately I've like started adding more song, like singing to the group or inviting them to sing with me, and like, oh, it's so scary, but then it's
Yes,
received, you hear them like
yes.
joining in, I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, just different things I play with all the time. And there's some things that don't hit, where I'm like, I
Uh,
should do that again.
what's an
But
example of what that would be?
I would have to think about that. I've probably recapitulated them, released them from my memory.
Good word. Good word. I like that. Deflect with the recapitulate. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, like, yep, yes.
No, I'm kidding. No, I
Yeah.
caught you off guard. It's okay. I know if I tried to think of that, I'd have, well, oh gosh, what is something that I've done? I went, no, I'm not doing that again. Well, the song one is a big one. That's a tricky one because I love to sing Hanuman Chalisa, and the Hanuman
Mm,
Chalisa is so challenging to learn. And if somebody's already self-conscious about chanting, and then you give them this 40 verse mantra sung in a dialect of Hindi and or Sanskrit, they a derivative of, they're just like, whoa, this is way too much. And so sometimes I feel like I'm singing and I'm just like I'm performing. Now everybody's just
mm,
sitting watching me, and then that question of like, what is my intention right now? And ultimately my intention is if everybody sings together, that's when it's really fun. That's when it feels really
mhm.
good. So then, but when people don't want to participate, I get in that really awkward space of like, what am I doing? No one's really enjoying this. And it's just such a uncomfortable thing, but at the same time, I still go there every now and again. So that's
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's good to hear that you've had a similar type of feeling.
Absolutely. I even like some things I'll share because I try to keep it pretty authentic and share what's on my mind. And remember there was a class where I had them standing in tree pose and I shared something and immediately I was like, I really shouldn't have said that. You
Yeah, that did not go over well.
that did not work so well.
Uh-huh.
So things like that happen all the time, but we have this practice of instant forgiveness. That's one of the things one of my teachers really put it instilled is like you do something, you just forgive instantly and move on. Like, let's not carry that with us. Just let it go.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there was one aspect of being a yoga teacher and or studio owner that you could remove from the equation, what would it be?
Oh, um, maintenance of the space.
Like like
Yes,
the maintenance, like the roof, the water pipes, the
totally.
toilets, the all
The
that stuff.
heater,
It never ends, right? And the
Oh,
expenses of it.
yes.
All right, good point.
I would
I would
easily
put
take that one out of
I'd put
there.
that one high on the list. If if there's something you could double, like if there was something that you love about it, an aspect of it, if you could increase that aspect, what would it be?
The
We
people,
the people. Cool.
the connections, the like
Yeah.
the community, the time like before class or after class where people
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
share, or they give each
Yeah.
other hugs, or they walk home together,
Good point.
or
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Good point. That is pretty cool. Nice.
Mhm.
What are your dreams and aspirations in relation to future goals in relation to your yoga teaching career?
The word that comes to mind is expansion. I think I mentioned this a little bit, but continuing on this path of doing like more workshops less often, reaching bigger groups of people, collaborating with other fantastic teachers here in Chicago, and expanding my offerings. Just as much as I had mentioned going to my first teacher training, looking up in the sky and being like, I have to share this. That same feeling came over to me when I sat in my first ceremony, like in a teepee around a fire in a circle. And I was like, more of this. Like, how do we do more of this?
Yeah.
So that's really my goal. And I know that's pretty general and broad. However, there's like a feeling behind it that it makes me very excited to lean into in these next couple of years.
That's cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. Where's your next retreat? Do you have one scheduled?
Great question. The next one that we have on the radar is planned to be in Arizona this spring. And then there's a couple I'm working on this summer that would be more local. And then Oaxaca again in November, same as
Very
last year.
cool. Very cool. Can you tell me a little bit about an app that you are involved in recently? Can you tell me a little bit about how that came to be and what your role in that project is?
Yes. So I'm super grateful to be involved in a corporate wellness initiative by Guaranteed Rate. They have developed an app and invited me to teach classes and be a part of it. It's pretty amazing what they've put together. It's like high production, like the app quality is fantastic. The videos are amazing and they're all like 10, 15, 20 minutes long over yoga, do a lot of meditation, there's sound healing, there's a variety of many instructors. And it's, a year ago they reached out and were like, would you like to be involved in this? And I was like, Guaranteed Rate, like, this is interesting. What are we doing?
Is it the mortgage company or?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
mortgage
Yeah.
company, exactly. But however, I'm a person that like loves new opportunity and loves adventure. And I also trusted the people that, helped connect me to this. So I was like, yeah, like let's do it. Let's see what this is all about. And as I've watched it over the year kind of go through all the processes and launch, it's really awesome to be a part of something like this where you see large corporations taking an initiative to bring wellness, to keep it accessible, to make it more accessible because it's free. All the classes are completely free, and it's awesome. You can like, I'm gonna take my yoga class and then get my financial advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
they go
great.
hand in hand. If you don't have good
Okay.
financial health, it's hard to feel well. And if you're Not
It's
well. It's
genius,
hard
really,
to, it is actually genius. I like hearing that. That's
isn't
really
it?
cool. That is
Yeah,
cool. I'm
it
definitely going to
is.
check it out. We'll have the link in the description so people can click and see you on there. And like you said, it's
Thank
totally free.
you.
So there's no, you can just go there and check it out. That's awesome. What is your thoughts and feelings about collaboration versus competition? And have you fallen into the trap as a yoga teacher and studio owner of feeling competitive with other studios around you? Or have you been able to maintain a fairly healthy balance with seeing all? I'm going to use this. I got a chance to interview Cassandra Reinhardt, who's a yoga teacher, and she's really popular on YouTube. And she said, all boats rise with the tide. And I love that because it just this idea of collaboration instead of competition, that if I lift you up, we're
Mhm.
both going up together. And it's not that, oh no, Robin's doing an app and she's doing free yoga on there. Well, I have a studio business. How am I going to make a living if she keeps giving away things for free? How am I going to pay my bills? And so there's this little quandary that we sometimes land in. Can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated that challenge as a business owner?
That's a really great question. And it's been something that has ebbed and flowed over the years. Honestly, I remember there was a point for me where I did feel a level of competition, which is also interesting because I come from an athletic background. So competition in some ways was like in my blood, when it comes to like racing.
And
And so
it can be really healthy. Don't you agree? Like
it can.
we grow.
Yes.
If there's someone else pushing us, we're like, I'm gonna keep up.
Exactly. So there can be really like a healthy balance that comes with competition. I think that's a beautiful point. There was a point for me several years ago that I remember I was like, I can't follow anybody anymore like on social media that is having a studio, because I would see things and be like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. I have to do that. And then it felt like this hustle where I like had to keep up and I had to be everything for everybody. And so once I like centered myself on that, and I kind of released that competition that I felt, and started aligning with like, well, I don't have to do it all. And the beautiful thing is, if somebody else in Chicago is already doing it, thank you. Like, let me do this thing over here
Yeah. Yeah.
instead. And I love that idea. You said like we all lift each other up, because there's plenty of people in the world. There's so many people who need access to yoga. We are certainly not at a point where everybody's doing it. So I think there's plenty of people that need it, plenty of opportunities to offer it. And just we have to constantly, we meaning me, have to constantly bring myself back to that space of like, this is not competition, right? We're all in this together. We're all part of the human race. Like we all want to see one another succeed, because when we do, then it only expands from there. And sometimes I'll be honest, like sometimes it's hard when I hear like a teacher who is like teaching at my studio, who's now going to go like do this thing over here, and like, yes, I'm so happy for them, but at the same time I'm like, oh, they're leaving, or whatever it is, and it's like this hole to fill. So I have to constantly keep myself in check of like, no, like this is best for them, and this creates opportunity over here for somebody else who wants that space. So it's constant navigation. And I think a lot of it also is ingrained in culture. Like we do live in a competitive culture. So the environment seems to be that way. And I'm just speaking very generally. So to always come back to that space of like, yes, and I observe this over here, but I'm choosing this path because there is enough.
Mm.
Like, and we can all take care of each other. Because like you said, we just keep elevating each other. I know there's that story of the man who he grew corn in his yard, and every year he would go to the fair and he would always win like best corn, every year at the fair. And he would just hand out his seeds to all of his neighbors and be like, here, you want the best corn? Grow this, plant this seed, do that. And over time, his neighbors and people would be like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you giving away your secret recipe?
Mhm.
And he's like, well, think about it. If they're all growing the best corn, well, when the wind blows, the crops are like sharing that energy. So it's like, in fact, it just elevates the corn that I get to offer.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, just like
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
I'm ready to blow corn dust.
Yes.
Corn seed. I'm ready to pollinate some
Uh,
corn. Yeah.
yes.
That's classic, Robin. I love it. I love it. It's a good analogy. I know, one thing I'm finding with the internet, like one thing I love about doing this personally is
Mhm.
that I write you a letter. Hi, Robin. I'm a yoga teacher and you're a yoga teacher. Would you be willing to like talk to me on this platform? And you write back and you go, yes. And like I mean now I could hear you saying that. Before I wasn't sure that I didn't know you were gonna be so full of energy and good vibes. But I mean I kind of figured you were because oh yeah, on that note, I want to make mention a special thank you to Mindy Gray for
Yes.
introducing me to you because she came in to take class and she said she had trained and practiced with you and I asked her, "Oh, do you know anybody that would like to be on a podcast? Do you think that would be interesting?" And she's like, "You got to talk to Robin Samples. She's such a beautiful human." And so I kind of had a good feeling already. Like I figured you'd be open to it, but like I don't feel like you're not threatened by me. I feel like the internet
Mm,
almost like broadens the sphere. And for me, like when we were in California and had a yoga studio, we were a very small fish. And no, we were a very small fish in a huge pond because there were so many famous teachers around us, and we just felt like we're brand new teachers. And who's going to come to us? I mean, there's all these legendary yoga journal famous people, and then when we came back to Florida, my hometown, it was like there was hardly anything going on. No one had ever practiced Ashtanga around here. And we were just like, we felt big, and
mhm,
which is not good for the ego, but we felt big. And so when I started getting into the internet and dreaming of being able to cultivate and earning a living no matter where I live off of the internet, I thought, I'm this really tiny fish in a huge pond. I mean, this pond it's global, right? I mean, it's the
mhm.
biggest pond we have, in my opinion, in terms of intellect. And so I was like, I just stayed away from it because I just didn't believe in myself. So then when I started thinking, I'm just going to do podcasting because I like to talk to people. That's something I can do. Okay, let me start. And now I'm like getting a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. But I feel like the competitive element has somehow been pulled out of it, but it's so competitive on the internet, right? Like, I mean, wouldn't you agree trying to like,
True.
you like when you look at
Oh
social
yeah.
media and stuff, it's so competitive. It's all about how many numbers you have and who's got the more numbers and who's got the bigger and which is so annoying on that level. But I think, I don't know. I just wanted to talk like that, just kind of see
Mhm.
and you kind of already touched upon it, but any thoughts that came to mind when I went down that long rambling track?
No, I appreciate that, and I can completely relate. It's so true. There's so much out there. There's so much content out there. There's so many like cool people doing cool things where it's almost like this, how can I keep up? Or why is anybody gonna want to like
Yeah.
learn from me or
Yeah.
whatever it is. I think that's part of the challenge of the internet. And at the same time, just like you said, now we have access to so many things that we otherwise wouldn't have, which is like pretty cool. Like you and I probably never would have met 50 years
Probably
ago.
not. Probably
you
not.
know, no way.
No
And now
way.
we get to
We
do
would
a
have to write a
podcast
letter.
together.
We would have I would have like
Yeah.
I would have to look up, I would have opened the phone book. I don't know. You don't have to tell me your age. I was born in 73. I would have opened up the phone book.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember phone books?
I do. Yes. I was 85, but yes, I
85.
remember
All right.
the
So we're kind of
phone
close. Yep. I mean, for those of you that are listening that don't ever remember the phone book, it's pretty funny because like you'd be in school and you'd think like, wow, there's that person in class that I like. I wonder if I could call them. So you could open up this book and you'd look for like their last name. So I'd be like samples. And there'd be like 100 samples in there. So you're like, and I mean, not that I would ever do this because it's kind of creepy, but you go phone number by phone number. Like, is
Oh,
Robin
yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Is
Like,
Robin
wrong
there?
number.
Oh, wrong.
Yeah.
It's so
Oh, yeah.
different now. It's a totally, I mean, okay, I guess my next question for you then, how similar is everything though? Like, cause like we say, everything's so different,
Thing.
but what do you think is the same that has not changed, even though we have all this new technology?
Gosh, I have to think about that. Like, I think at the like a lot of the human experience is the same, even
Yeah.
though so much has also changed. I don't even know how to answer that question. Do you
Okay.
have an example?
I would say I'd go straight to love. Love is the
Yeah.
same. Love is no different. Emotions. I don't think emotions. I think love, hate, anger, peace.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like that's always been the same. I don't feel like that's changed throughout my life. I remember feeling love. I remember feeling anger. Right. I mean, I can remember that as a
Yeah.
kid, and I still feel all those range of emotions today. So I think
Hmm.
that's the same. I don't know. Did anything else come to mind when I said that outside of emotions?
No, I think that's, yeah. And, choose the word that serves, you best. But I think about the idea of like energy, God, consciousness,
mm, mhm,
that feels like a thread that's moved through, even
good
if the
point.
understanding is different of it. But I agree with you, like the feelings, like,
Yeah.
yeah, love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. And there's, you know what? Wait, one more example. Okay. One thing, because I love the elements, and many of them have changed as our earth has changed. Water's different, the earth is
Mm.
different. But which
Ooh.
doesn't change?
Ooh.
Fire.
Oh.
Fire, fire is
Oh.
never polluted.
Ooh.
Fire is like always the same.
Good one. Haven't gone there yet. So
you
then
know,
if we go, let's go to another element, Earth. I mean, but then fundamentally, has the Earth changed? I
I
mean,
think of
this is a
mm,
great, ooh, you taking us down a good track.
mhm,
Could we reason out that fire would fire be different if I burn, if I throw my VHS, if I throw my plastic on the fire?
mhm.
Gosh, we'd have to study chemistry at this point. I mean, you're right.
My
First thing I think is like fire is fire. But I mean, if we really went into the molecular level of fire, does fire change depending upon what fire is burning off of? I don't know the answer to that one. I mean, we'd have to go to some pro science person, but what do you think?
I think I would need backup on this, but I would think that that the air would change. So it's like whatever we're burning goes into the air. So now the air is different, but the fire is the same.
Mm. I like that you brought this up. That's such a good thought. I'm gonna have to dive in more on that. I
Mhm.
mean, oh,
Good
there's,
contemplation.
yeah, that's a good one. And we're only going
Yeah.
water. All right. We might have to do a round two on this one. You and I can do some research.
Mm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
one thing we hear, matter is neither created nor destroyed, right?
Hmm.
Like matter is matter. So we're not making new matter. The amount of matter that exists is is this, I mean, I guess this gets into the concept of finite versus infinite. Because when we start studying ecological issues, I think one of the big questions we got to come down to, if we're going to get like down to some nitty gritty ones, is like, do you believe the universe is infinite or do you believe it's finite? Because in a lot of the, say, environmental change rhetoric and or thinking, it's finite. We'll run out of trees. We'll run out of oxygen. We'll run out of water. We'll run out of. But in theory, according to the nothing is ever created nor destroyed idea, that lends me to think a little more along the infinite. Like when we think of renewable resource, like without a doubt, in my opinion, if humans were removed from the equation, the earth would boom, it would just start growing.
Yeah.
There would be plants, animals, insects. I mean, I don't, unless we were to collide with the sun or change the distance we were from the sun. Because I mean, that's another thing I think about too. Like if we're spinning around the sun, without a doubt, like I want, like we are staying right on track, but surely we're either getting a little closer or we're getting a little further. I can't imagine that we are just constantly spinning at the exact same distance from the sun. Based if we watch any other sort of element in that we can see on Earth, like I don't know, maybe we're getting way too out there. Sorry about that,
I love
everybody.
this.
I just had to go there.
Love it. Yeah, let's go there. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure in like as we rotate around the sun, the distance is changing just a little bit,
Just a
but
little
over
bit.
time.
Yeah,
And with your question of infinite versus finite, I think it's both.
it's both.
It's it's
Good.
both.
Good.
Yeah, both are true.
Everything, because everything is existing all at the same time.
Yes.
How
And
could
we wouldn't
yeah.
have infinite if there wasn't finite,
Mm, mm,
you know.
mm. Do you think theism and atheism are both true?
I would have to think about that one a little more.
All right.
But I mean, based on this argument, I'd have to go with
Because
yes.
they both exist in the same sphere.
You know? Yes.
All right, good. Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep it light, right? Like
Yeah.
just simple. I agree, Robin. Oh my
Simple
gosh,
is good.
where else can we go from here? No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Well, I mean, I like the idea of simplicity, like you said, because I think that is something like the internet, while as we talked about how amazing it is, it does make everything very complex.
Mm,
And I think complexities in some ways is amazing, but simplicity is what I'm feeling like such a pull towards,
mm,
like just
good
like
point.
simple living,
Yeah,
are my basic needs met, and is the sun shining? Yes.
good point.
Simple
What
is good.
can you think of something that you've done recently where you had a simple living moment? I can think of one, but I'm curious if something comes to mind for you. Like where you had that realization of like, wow, I haven't done this in a long time. This is simple and this is great.
I
Apart
mean,
from,
I
use a good example of seeing the sun. That's a really good one.
yeah, this is something that I try to do as often as possible, to be honest. Like just yesterday, I was sitting and watching my birds, not my birds, the birds, um, outside, and or like I did entice. I just moved recently, and my old place, I had a lot of birds that would come hang out, and I loved them, and we would chat all the time. And I was like, I hope they find me in my new place, and so I'm like enticing them here with bird seed. But either way, they found me, and I was like, yes. And so just like sitting out the
That's
window and
good.
like watching them fly, you
Great,
know. Yes.
great example. I love it. Right? You have a connection with some wildlife. You have to leave them, but you do something to try to reattract that same type of energy back to your sphere. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
What about
good
you? You
one.
said you have a simple thing that you thought of.
Over the Thanksgiving holiday, I did a 1,000-piece puzzle. I haven't done a puzzle. I can't tell you how long it's been since I've put my computer down and stopped trying to edit podcasts and just did a puzzle. And it was
Yes.
so great. And my father-in-law and I just bonded over this puzzle and we had great conversation. And I think our conversation went places it wouldn't have gone had we had not. And what stared so intensely at something. I think there's something cool about like two people being across from each other, working on the same project together that required such intense focus, but yet it created this freedom. It was this, we could talk about anything, and it was neat. And it reminded me of how important the analog is, to keep the analog in our life, even though digital is so cool,
Yeah, I keep bringing up Oaxaca, but I was just there. And one of the things that they talked about is they're like, per your example, is like we think too much. We're like thinking all the time. And they had talked about we really need to find space, and also yoga, like space in the mind. But they would say these simple things like you did doing a puzzle, or one of the things that they said was when you're walking somewhere and you find yourself overthinking, just start singing. Just
Mm,
sing instead and let that help clear the mind, you
mm,
know?
it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's cool. Well, I'm gonna watch your website to I would love to go to Oaxaca. I would really like to do that. So that
Yes.
hopefully I could join you for a retreat. That would be
Join
amazing.
us. That would be dope.
Be fun.
Yes.
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, Robin. Well, you are fun to speak to, and I'm glad I had this opportunity. Super
Yeah.
easy,
Thank
and
you.
you can handle my like all over the placeness. And thank you everyone listening for putting up with me if I got a little out there. And but Robin, you reeled me in well, and I like that. Is there anything that you want to share before we move our conversation toward a close?
Mm. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like there's a level of like blind faith that you had in it too. We haven't met before, and I really appreciate everything that you offer as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and all of the places that it's gone. So thank you for shining the light in your small town in Florida. I think it's amazing what you're doing. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, um, and just for having me on. It's a pleasure.
That's cool. If there's anybody listening that's going through a really difficult time, and we'll keep it really vague, they're just down and out, what little tidbit of advice or inspiration would you share with them?
Mm. Let's see.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes I get really down and out, to be honest. I'm an extremely positive person. I've got so many good things going for me. I feel great right now. I'm actually
Mhm,
doing really well right now. My body feels
mhm,
good. I've worked through some challenges. But I do recognize that I do still get down.
mhm,
I know there's people listening that are having a down day too.
mhm.
Um, what do you do when you but maybe I mean I know there's people out there that are perpetually positive or
Yeah.
continuously, it amazes me. My Some of my wife's family, they're just really perennially positive.
Mhm.
What do you do when if you have a moment where you're just like, oh, I just can't do this anymore?
I feel yeah. Some of the things that come to mind. One, bit of movement. It always feels good to turn on a song and dance and
Oh,
just like let yourself be free and move whatever it is through you. I always like feel uplifted after a little bit of house music. Turn it up. whatever, whatever it is. The other thing that I think about is uh so one of the elements, water holds our vibration. Having a glass of water and like telling the water how you want to feel, like help me feel happy, I want to feel joyful. And also gratitude, like thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The more grateful we are, the easier it is for these like feelings of like joy to come back in. So like even creating a list, like thank you for the plant that I sit next to you. Thank you for this Christmas tree. Thank you for the sun that shines. Simple, very simple things, and that always shifts my mindset as well.
perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you, Robin.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.